Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Raymond Yeung. Here are tonight's top stories. John Lee calls for understanding from civil servants over their pay rise. Macau is to close all casinos for 1 week from Monday to prevent COVID from spreading. And protesters in Sri Lanka stormed the residence of their president, whom they blame for the country's economic crisis. The chief executive has called for understanding from middle-ranking and senior civil servants who had their pay rise slashed. In his first media interview since taking office, John Lee also outlined his vision to create a make-do government. Less than 1 week in office, John Lee has already found himself in the hot seat. The chief executive is facing dissent from within the government after a watered-down pay rise proposal angered civil service unions. In an interview with HKIBC, Lee insisted the decision was made after considering a host of factors.
Of course, one is the pay trend indicator. I also consider the morale and the demand of the civil service. But I also have to take into consideration of, first of all, the financial situation of the government and the economy of Hong Kong. What we are facing is a contracting economy. If you look at the figure for the first quarter of this year, actually the economy contracted by 4%.
While Lee didn't immediately win the hearts of public servants, he earned applause from the business community after lifting the disruptive flight bans.
I agree the next step is to reduce inconvenience further, but how we're going to do that, we have to be, again, evidence-based, because I don't want to go backward.
Lee confirmed that talks are underway with the mainland to ease cross-border curbs, but kept his ideas close to his chest. But he's ready for his policy address, which is still 3 months away.
The ideas are all in my mind. I will be holding a lot of discussion with the 15 bureaus that will be contributing to my policy address. But I will make do. I mean, this government is a make-do government.
But one thing he was not making do yet was to move into the chief executive's official residence, Government House.
I will move in as soon as possible, but I also think that I need to get my own thing sorted out.
Of 4 previous chief executives, only Tung Chee-hwa opted not to move into Government House. The hospital authority is arranging an additional PCR test for COVID patients in hospital before they can return to care homes. This came as infections remained high. Macy Mock reports.
Health authorities today reported 2,995 new COVID infections, 204 of which were imported. There were no new COVID-related deaths, and the hospital authority said it did not observe a sharp increase in severe and critical cases. 8 additional infections were reported from homes for the elderly and the disabled. Public hospitals have adjusted the discharge criteria for infected patients from care homes.
For the patients who receive equal or more than 2 vaccines, on top of the rapid antigen test, we want a PCR test when achieve either a negative or a CT value more or equal to 30, we can let them go back to the hospitals. We aim to increase the protections to the other cases in the hospital because they are more prone to a severe illness.
2 more patients from the Hong Kong Buddhist Hospital's infirmary ward have been infected. So far, 16 patients and 4 staff in the same ward contracted COVID. And another patient and 3 employees from the Pok Ngoi Hospital Tin Ka Ping Infirmary also came down with the disease. Maisie Mock, HKIBC.
Infectious disease expert Ivan Hong says PCR test results should be released faster. He says this could help create conditions for a shorter hotel quarantine. Macy Mock again.
Calls have been growing to shorten or even scrap the 7-day hotel quarantine for arrivals. Ivan Hong, who heads the University of Hong Kong's Infectious Disease Division, has suggested 3 days in a hotel, followed by 4 days of home isolation. If the arrangement works well, hotel quarantine can be eliminated. Hong suggested that arrivals should undergo a PCR test daily for 1 week and then be tested every 2 days for some time. But he said adjustments to hotel quarantine should come only when PCR tests are done in a more precise way, echoing Health Secretary Lo Chong-mao's plan for testing institutions to speed up the release of results.
The preciseness of using the PCR testing and the efficiency is very important, meaning that if we could perhaps complete the testing as well as the report instead of 24 hours, if we could do it within like 8 hours or even 4 hours, that would definitely prevent the infected individual from going to the community.
Hong said the number of severe COVID cases and deaths have remained stable because most people have received at least 2 jabs, while some gained immunity after contracting the virus and getting vaccinated. Maisie Mock, HKIBC.
Casinos in Macau will be closed for 7 days starting on Monday to stop the spread of COVID. Many other industrial and business operations will also be suspended for a week. Only essential services such as public transport, supermarkets and pharmacies can stay open. Residents have been told to stay home and only go out when it is urgent, but they have to wear KN95 masks outdoors. Macau has registered another 71 cases, taking the tally in the current wave to 1,374. Overseas, thousands of protesters in Sri Lanka have stormed the official residence of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa to demand his resignation. Police fired tear gas as they tried to stop angry demonstrators from reaching the premises in the capital, Colombo. Rajapaksa left his residence yesterday following warnings that it would be besieged by angry crowds today. At least 22 people were injured in clashes between protesters and police. Frustration and desperation have been building up in the island nation, which is struggling with its worst economic crisis in 7 decades. Sri Lankans blame the president and his family for the crisis. Japan is still in shock following the assassination of former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. The man arrested in connection with the killing is alleged to have claimed that a group linked to Abe had ruined his family financially. Chloe Fong reports.
A motorcade took the body of former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe to his home in Tokyo, 1 day after he was shot in the western city of Nara. Police, meanwhile, are continuing to question a man who was arrested at the scene and is alleged to have confessed. Footage showed a man already waiting near the spot before Abe arrived for an election campaign speech. From another angle, the man was seen walking towards the elder statesman and firing 1 shot. Abe fell after the second shot and died several hours later from an excessive loss of blood. The suspect has been named as Tatsuya Yamagami, a 41-year-old former Maritime Force member. He is alleged to have said he acted because of Abe's connection with a religious organization, which the police did not identify. Yamagami blamed the group for ruining his mother financially and breaking up his family. The killing stunned Japan, which has one of the world's lowest rates of gun crimes and some of the toughest gun control laws. President Xi Jinping expressed his condolences and deep regrets to Abe's family. Xi said he and Abe had reached important consensus over building Sino-Japanese relations in a new era. Hong Kong's chief executive Zhang Li expressed his deep condolences on behalf of the city. Chloe Fong, HKIBC.
Foreign Minister Wang Yi has warned the United States that their relationship could sink lower because Washington has a poor perception of Beijing. Wang met his U.S. counterpart Antony Blinken on the sidelines of the G20 foreign ministers meeting in the Indonesian resort of Bali. The Chinese diplomat said the U.S. should not send the wrong signals to independence forces in Taiwan. He also urged Washington to cancel tariffs on Chinese imports as soon as possible. Blinken said they discussed areas where the two countries can cooperate and also issues that strain ties.
We addressed areas of disagreement and ways to manage and reduce risks. I conveyed the deep concerns of the United States regarding Beijing's increasingly provocative rhetoric and activity toward Taiwan and the vital importance of maintaining peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait.
Locally, the Chinese-style foot drill has been performed for the first time at Hong Kong's police academy as recruits graduated. Former policeman John Lee attended the passing out parade for the first time as chief executive. Lee, who graduated from the academy 45 years ago, said the new style represented the force's commitment to the national identity. He also urged the graduates to safeguard national security. Police Commissioner Raymond Yeung, meanwhile, said youths jailed for their involvement in the social unrest in 2019 should be given a second chance. Apart from a new foot drill, all commands were switched to Putonghua after being delivered in English for over a century. The Justice Secretary has defended the delay in bringing opposition activists to trial, saying it takes time to process the cases. Paul Lam was referring to 47 people charged under the national security law with conspiracy to commit subversion. Most of them have been in custody since March last year, but their hearings are expected to take place only next year. They were detained in connection with a primary election to choose candidates in the 2020 Legislative Council elections, which were later cancelled. Lam promised to protect the rights of those who were arrested. Muslims around the world are celebrating the Eid al-Adha festival as the annual Hajj pilgrimage in Saudi Arabia came to an end. One of the final rituals was the stoning of the devil. Pilgrims gathered in the Saudi village of Mina to hurl stones at three walls that represent the devil. The act is to signify resistance to temptation. 1 million Muslims took part in the Hajj this year. Saudi officials limited the number of pilgrims in the past 2 years because of COVID. On to the weather now. Mainly fine and very hot tomorrow, apart from isolated showers. Temperatures will range between 28 and 34 degrees. Similar conditions in the coming days. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our main news for Saturday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Raymond Yeung. Good evening.